Number 8 on page 22 talk about church and your spiritual beliefs. Talk about church and your spiritual beliefs. Is that really important?
Yes.
Why do you think so?
Because you gotta be on the same page, if not you'll always have a conflict.
Any other opinions?
Well, a question really. Would you advise couples to discuss spiritual beliefs, and even if your values are out of alignment, that you just respect each other's views? Is it something about, do you respect the other person's view without trying to convert them? Or do you say, well, hang on, we have completely different views. This is never going to work.
No, that's an interesting point of view. Any comments on that from anyone?
Completely different.
Yeah.
That's the problem.
It's a problem.
Completely different.
Yeah, even if you
There's
respect
no-
each other, you just go, no, hang on, in the long term, we could never meet in the middle.
Yeah, I think.
And
completely
we need to
different.
stop. Is that what you would advise people to do?
Yes, I think the scriptures are very clear on that. It says, do not be unequally yoked with unbelievers. And that is a definite rule as I see it. Right? And experience has shown that in the long run, it doesn't work out. At the beginning when, the flames of romance are roaring, oh, that's not important, we'll manage, we'll make out. But the problem steps in as soon as the children start coming.
Amen.
And we got to decide, well,
How they're going to raise
how
them.
are we going to raise these children? It will happen sooner or later. And that is where the problem comes up. You see?
Pastor Patrick, I can attest to that because growing up in Barbados, my father belonged to the Anglican and my mother belonged to the Nazarene. So straight away, my dad wanted me to go with him and my mom wanted me to go with her. So it was like split at one end.
Yeah.
So it ended up the boys went with him and I went with my parents and my mom. So it was like, I can attest to that.
Yes, but the thing there is that they're both Christian denominations.
Yes.
You can see how much worse it's going to be if you're from different religions. You see?
Also, when you get a child, to name that child something, one of them want to go Christian way, something want to go Muslim way.
Exactly.
So that's a big thing too.
Exactly.
Name it.
Exactly. It's always a problem. So it's important that these matters be addressed before you take the step of marriage. Because you don't want to get married and then you decide, well, this can't work because you're a Christian and this one is some other religion. And we can't decide how the children will turn out. Some people slug through it and, they continue the marriage, but you can realize that there isn't going to be this uniformity in their relationship. There's not this oneness that marriage suggests. Right? So the matter of religion, this spiritual experience is important. It's also important when we consider two people might be in the same church or the same religion. Right? There's a different aspect of it where you might have a person who's just a nominal Christian and one who's very serious in their Christian walk. Right? Now that could be a potential problem. I've been to churches where I know boys come around because they got attractive girls in the church, and the only way they could get to these girls is to come to church too. So they come to church and they're just nominal Christians. Now what happens in a relationship like that? If you go through to marriage and all of that and say, yes, this boy is a Christian, he's come to church. Well, you're a serious Christian. You want to progress in your Christian walk. But all he was interested in was getting to you. I think Christ is secondary in his life. Do you see a problem there?
Yeah.
you may want to go to church, let's say 3 days a week. You may want to go once every 3 weeks. And then, you know, somebody may think, well, why are you going to the church so often? What's dragging you over there? I mean, that's something.
Exactly, and perhaps that's why you don't have so many men in church.
But would that change somebody? Isn't that also a good thing? He's coming to church because of her, but eventually he can be saved.
See, that is the reason I asked that, because I think that's a common thinking. It's like, maybe I can rub off on this person. I don't know if it's a feminine thing that women think that we can change people, or it's a codependent thing. Because sometimes codependents just think, oh, he's a bad boy, but I can fix that. You know what I mean? So that's why I asked that question.
But I'm not thinking I can change you. The Word of God can.
But that's still trying to control someone. That's still,
But
you
he's
know.
coming to church on his own because of me.
Well, do you know that though? Is she aware that he's only coming to catch a thing with her?
Catch a thing. That's it.
Or does she think?
Because
I hear them.
coming to church is not based on Christ,
Christ, yeah.
that's going to become a problem where he can go either way, and then what position is that going to put you in? What if he doesn't want to grow deeper in Christ?
Right.
You are growing deeper, then you guys going to have another conflict. You understand? What if he decides to slip back? He wants to go hang out, you don't want to go in the places he wants to go.
But yeah, I understand all of that, but I'm just thinking that if he received a message,
Pray to
would
God.
that would be a good thing?
Yes.
It's possible.
That's why he's at a place where he can be exposed
Yes,
to
and
what he
hopefully.
should do, right? But I think before you get married, you should be clear about this.
But they're not even considering that yet. He's just attracted to her, he's coming to church because of her, and she don't know his heart, but God does.
Exactly.
And eventually that could turn into something good.
Hopefully.
Yeah,
Hopefully.
but then if you're going to go to the extent of getting married,
Right.
don't you think you should know where he stands spiritually?
Yes.
You don't think you should know that? You wouldn't want to know that before?
Before, yes.
Well, exactly. And this is the point. This is what we say, that these are matters that you need to discuss before. But it happens so often that we don't get to that point and we just jump into marriage. Then, yes, Vera.
Pastor Patrick, I'm a living example to what you're saying, because when I got married, I came from a background of a born-again believer. We were Pentecostal, as you know, before. And my husband was a Catholic. It's a big difference. Even though they count themselves like us, it was really a big difference. I came from a family with a lot of ministers, pastors, and my uncle who had to marry us come to my mother. I was in the middle, had a meeting. My brother Jimmy and we had a meeting, and my uncle said that he's not going to marry us because he do not believe in it. And but for me, growing up this way, why should I choose somebody like that?
Yeah.
The truth is, we got married. And look, it's 40-something years now since Dad have been saved. It took me 2 years praying with my kids, even having Nellie and Wayne. They would come and kneel with me. She's always said she remember that as a kid. Kneeling with me and praying that God is going to save my husband. And within the time I asked for that blessing, that God would save him, he used to read like a whole book of Louis L'Amour. And I did that so much Daddy used to read, and I prayed that, you know what, Lord help him to start reading the Bible. And it so happened that is what he started doing. I had prayer meeting in my home every week, every Wednesday. It gets so big from in my living room, we had to have it in my garage in Trinidad. And he got saved. So it's really your relationship with God. I would say that how much faith you have that this is going to happen. But I'm not saying it's right to do it. But sometimes, look at it work out today, look at the man he is.
Yes, exactly.
You know, a man of example. So it could happen as well.
It could happen.
It could go really haywire.
That could also go the other way. There are a lot of flip stories to that also, where it didn't happen that way. You meet people in church. I know a lot of stories.
Yes.
I know a lot of stories where you meet them in church, you get married, you figure you marry somebody who is born and raised in church, so you figure they sound right.
Yeah.
And then after a couple of years, it literally went sideways. I know people like that.
Yeah.
We have friends that are like that.
Yeah.
And it creates huge huge problems, not just in a relationship, but even in a circle. When you're hanging out in a circle, right? And yes, we all go to church, yes, we all think, but some of us might believe in doing this, some of us wouldn't want to listen to this, some of us wouldn't want to play this kind of music, do this kind of thing, spray this kind of drink. Do you understand? And it creates.
Exactly.
When you're not on the same spiritual mind, it just creates, not just in a marriage, but even in friendships, even in, regular relationships. It creates all sorts of problems.
Yes. So, this matter of unequal yoking is not only related to different religions, it is within the same Christian fold.
Yeah.
Because if I'm just a nominal Christian, just going to church, I might just be going to church to please you. But deep inside, there is no change. Whereas you now, you're a very avid Christian. You want to progress in your Christian walk, and it's not going to go well.
All of that is good, but what you're saying is the right thing. But they say love is blind, so when they fall in love, like, forget it.
You don't see.
Yes, love is blind, and it's a terrible thing when they're blinded.
Yeah, but it don't really happen.
Blind in trouble.
Well, that is what Patrick is explaining. Love is past Patrick. Love is blind. You start for see, then the trouble begin.
Yes, but the same idea goes beyond, religion. I mean, to me, religion is the important aspect.
Yeah.
But there are other areas too. One of the points here is that you discuss politics. Marriages have been broken up because of politics.
Yeah.
Because you belong to different parties and you can't reconcile. And it doesn't say much to the strength of the marriage, but it happens.
Yeah.
So these are things that you need to get clear before, because they're important aspects of your life. And if you don't get those things cleared before, then you're headed for trouble somewhere down the road, because these are things that will surface sooner or later. You see?
I like the question. But one of the key words that you use is, I believe if you respect each other, no matter where you started, but you fall in love, and you respect, I think the conversations will become more fruitful just because of that respect. In other words, if you draw a line and says, well, I know you're this, and I'm this, and I'm not changing for you, because sometimes I'm not talking about who's in this room. Two people who fall in love, sometimes you don't know which one is on the correct side, but you're different. So there's respect, but because there's something that calls you to love that person. And if you respect that person, you can now communicate on the subject matters. I recall in my own personal life that the example she gave of her father, when she started to talk, I started to shake. I didn't know she didn't talk about me. Because I was in the Episcopal, she was in Nazarene. And I recall I used to get in my car and drive to Brooklyn, and she would drive to Springfield. But here it is, we're together. Who calls that?
Lot of pray.
Pray.
A lot of prayers, a lot of 5 o'clock morning pray. A lot of prayer.
Exactly, I agree. And you see how wise a decision that was? That you were the Nazarene instead of the other side.
And I'll throw a little the human side to it too. There was an episode that took place that I didn't plan it, but I think Pastor, before she really was segmented in this church, Pastor and Sister Cheryl came and visited. And I guess she wanted to feel complete, and she asked me if I'd be home for that visit. And the visit is one of the things that I kind of realized that I like the yeah, it was very nice. And I said, okay, I'll come to church, and that was it, So I'm saying really in a nutshell that if you allow it and don't draw lines, change will take place.
Yes.
Well, I agree. Respect is essential. You must respect your partner. If you don't respect your partner, I don't think a marriage could really go on, because it's going to run into problems sooner or later. There must be mutual respect, But even though there might be mutual respect, we might go on respecting each other. You know, I might respect your religion or your view, you might respect mine. But it doesn't bring us any closer. It just stops there. And what I'm saying is that if we're going to have a marriage, then I think we should be headed in the same direction. I might respect you, and if I marry a Muslim woman, for example, right, and she respects me, good, she continues her religion, I continue with my religion, mutual respect. So how are the children going to work out in that? How is that going to work out? You see, I think if you're getting married, you got to understand the basis of Christian marriage is that two people become one, right? And if there's going to be that oneness, then that is what is required. We can't be going separate. Regardless of how much we respect each other, there has to be unity there. And because this is so important, this is such an important aspect in marriage, you have to get that cleared. All right? Missy, that answers your question?
Yes.
All right, the next chapter we were supposed to go on to. Before we do that, there are other things that, you need to discuss that it shows in this chapter. I believe you've all read all the things, so we don't need to go into the details of all of that because we'll never finish this chapter that way. So the next chapter has to do with for better or for worse. You had a chance to read that? Anybody?
Yeah.
Good. This has to do with the marriage vows. And so we need to consider what is a Christian marriage like? What is it meant to be? And why is this matter of the vows so important? Now, marriage, the whole idea of biblical marriage or Christian marriage begins in the book of Genesis, chapter 2. Let's see if we can see how it all started. Verse 18, beginning at verse 18. The Lord God said, "It is not good for the man to be alone. I will make a helper suitable for him." Now God had made everything else before, and He's coming now to His supreme creation. He made man, and He's looking down and He's saying, "It is not good for man to be alone. I will make a helper suitable for him." Now the Lord God had formed out of the ground all the beasts of the field and all the birds of the air. He brought them to the man to see what he would name them. And whatever the man called each living creature, that was its name. So the man gave names to all the livestock, the birds of the air, and all the beasts of the field. But for Adam, no suitable helper was found. So the Lord God caused the man to fall into a deep sleep. And while he was sleeping, he took one of the man's ribs and closed up the place with flesh. Then the Lord God made a woman from the rib he had taken out of the man, and he brought her to the man. The man said, "This is now bone of my bones and flesh of my flesh. She shall be called woman, for she was taken out of man. For this reason, a man will leave his father and mother and be united to his wife, and they will become one flesh. The man and his wife were both naked, and they felt no shame." Now, this is what marriage is meant to be. It is this unity that we talked about, this oneness that should exist between the partners. God's intention is always for this unity, this one man and this one woman. Society today has warped that, but when we talk about Christian marriage, this is the essence of Christian marriage. It is one man, one woman becoming one. Therefore a man will leave his father and mother and cleave unto his wife, and the two shall become one. Now, that being the background or the basis of marriage, then we have to consider now this matter of the vows and what it all means. After we've reached the stage where we've discussed all the things that we wanted to discuss and the things we should discuss, and we decide to take this step of marriage, what is it going to mean for the partners? Now, the Christian marriage is something that goes through a period of counseling. That's to help the partners become aware of what they should commit to. And eventually, you end up with the marriage vows. Can anybody remember what those vows are like?
Yes.
Huh?
For richer, for poorer. For
Sickness
richer,
and health.
for richer, poorer. For richer, not poorer. For richer, not poorer. For better, not worse.
Yes, well, you know, traditionally, there are some traditional vows, and then of more recent times, people write their own vows. Reminds me of this story where a boy had just been through Sunday school and the pastor was talking about marriage. He said, how many wives can a man have? And by the time the question was out of his mouth, the boy jumped up, raised his hand. So, the pastor said, well, how many? He said, 16. He said, well, how you come to get 16? He said, well, 4 better, 4 worse, 4 richer.
4 for better. 4 for richer. I like that one.
Right. But we know that marriage is meant to be a lifelong experience.
Yeah.
It's meant to be one man, one woman from now on until the end. That's the ideal. Things happen in between and sometimes that is not achieved. But the whole intention of marriage, Christian marriage, is that there must be one man, one woman from now on until the end. And the vows, the traditional vows, are structured along those lines. And for those who can't remember those vows, let me see if I can.
You just heard it first.
Yes. If the vows you exchange today will be kept without violation, and if you seek always to know and do the will of God, your lives will be blessed with His presence, and your home will abide in peace. And so, the minister would say now, so and so, will you have this woman to be your wedded wife, to live together after God's ordinance in the holy estate of matrimony? Will you love her, comfort her, honor and keep her in sickness and in health, and forsaking all others, keep yourself only unto her, so long as you both shall live?
I do.
Right, and then you get the response, and then the same thing happens on the other side. Right? And it goes on. Where the man is going to make these vows now. The man is going to say, I, so and so, I, Robin, will take you to be my wedded wife, to have and to hold from this day forward. And this is where the numbers come in, for better, for richer, for poorer, in sickness and in health, to love and to cherish, till death us do part, according to God's holy ordinance. And therefore I pledge you my faith. Now some important words are used there. We look at this. First, we see marriage as this promise between a man and a woman. Right? And so often we think about this as just the two parties. Well, it's more than two parties involved here. There are really three parties involved here. God is the third party. And when you get into the stage of marriage, this is what you got to understand, that this is not just between me and you, but it's between me, you, and God. Right? And you're taking certain vows, so you're making certain promises, not only to the other partner, but also to God, that this is what this marriage is going to be. It's a union between two people according to the ordinance of God, what God wants, what is God's rule in this whole thing. And God's rule in this whole thing is that the two of you will be one from now on until death. Alright? So you make this vow, and this vow, as you said, it's a pledge. I pledge you my faith. This is a solemn promise. It goes just beyond an agreement. You know, like a contract. A contract is an agreement. But this goes beyond that. You're pledging in the same way that God makes promises to man. Right? We're trying to do the same thing that God does. God's promises are always sure. They're never taken back. Right? When God makes a promise, it's a promise that stands. And we're saying that this is the kind of promise we're making. This is the kind of pledge we're making one party to the other. It is meant to be honored from now on until the end. And this is what makes it so important, that you look at these vows and realize that there's no backing out of this thing. Any back out has to be before this. When you get to this stage, you're committed. And that commitment is one that goes on. And it's not only in the good times. And this is why it's spelled out here, for better, for worse. And it's easy to love people and to do all of these good things when it's for the better. But what happens if things don't work out the way you plan? What happens then?
Pack up and move out.
Well, there you go. Right? What happens when things go sour, when you lose your job? The husband loses a job, and what is the wife going to do? How is the home going to run? Would you still love them the same way? What if they become cranky? When the romance, when the fires die down and you get down to normal, and then she's going to see the real you, and you're going to see the real her. What happens then? And it doesn't gel with the idea that you had. What happens then? So marriage vows are very important, and one has to look at them and realize that this here is a pledge I am making, that I will have to go through it for life. And so you got to be pretty sure when you're going to get married or you're getting married that this is the partner that I will go through life with, regardless of what happens. Right? And people change. Right? The period of courting is completely different from the period of marriage. Right? The courting, you show out all your best qualities. But sadly speaking, in marriage, your worst qualities come out. So what's going to happen then? So it is important that you look at these vows, you consider these vows, and you understand that this is something for life. This is something you're making a commitment to. And if you're not prepared for that commitment, well then by all means don't go through with the marriage. It's not going to work. And as we know from experience, and I think the first week I read a story about this woman who was married for 63 years or so. And the first, all you think about is the wedding. But the wedding is just the beginning. It's what happens after the wedding that is important. How are these two people going to come to become one? And it means there's going to be a lot of give and take. It's not only take on the one side and give on the other side. There are times when one partner will have to give 100%. Because now we're no longer two, we're one. And this is what you have to keep in your focus, that we're no longer two now. It's one. You know, it's not your money and my money. It's not your family and my family. We're one. And this is where a lot of conflict comes in, because we don't see ourselves as one. We still see at the back of our minds, we still figure out we're still two people. This is my family, and those are your family. And my family always better than your family. What has been your experience? I mean, we're all married here. What has been your experience?
I'll start off with a question. How long, according to the calendar, should it take an average person to get to know that he's ready for that commitment? I mean, it's almost a killer question, but it's still a question.
The people who go to Vegas take one day. The people who go to Vegas can take one day. Yes, Doc.
No, I was saying pretty much the same thing you were saying. For some people, it's a matter of hours. Just a moment hit them, they're free, and they just go with it, and others hang on for 10 years.
And we know what usually happens with those.
I've heard you should take a road trip together. That when you're dating, because that's like you're in a car together or on a plane, and like your worst qualities come out as you're traveling, or the real you comes out. So I've heard that, and I kind of think it's true. I've seen stuff on a road trip. I was like, whoa, I didn't know that you had that side, you know? So I think it's like, I don't know, it's less obvious, but I think it's good advice to people. Because sometimes your religious beliefs don't allow you to move in together before you get married. So a road trip, I feel like, is a safe compromise. You're going somewhere together, I don't know if it's 8 to 10 hours. Yeah, stuff usually comes out during that time. Yeah, you find that they can't sing if they're singing to annoying music on the radio, stuff like that. You're like, whoa, I didn't know you like Britney Spears, you know, or whatever it is. Yeah.
Well, there you have it.
Hours for each trip.
Yeah. Yeah, so, you know, the whole idea is that how am I going to get through this thing? Am I committed to it? And commitment is what is important in your vows. And you have to see them as lifelong commitments. I must love this person regardless. The problem is when that is not reciprocated. And very often that happens in marriage because you start looking at the wrong side of the person or the bad side of the person and, hey, I didn't bargain for this. But this is what it's all about. When you make that commitment, it's for better or for worse. Regardless of what circumstances you go through life, you have to see yourself as being in this together. Right? One partner might lose a job. It means that you got to look at your budget, cut out certain things because the other partner has to carry the load in the meantime. Right? Life can be difficult.
No, I was going to say, I think that the parties will still be pretty understanding when they lost a job and that situation. I mean, I believe you can get a meeting of the minds.
Yeah.
What I think is probably a little bit more sinister is changing values or changing appetites, changing tastes that slowly seeps up to the surface. I mean, like for instance, somebody might like social media and they're off in a tangent and totally involved in social media. One person might be attracted to their job and be pulled in that direction. Or some person might be into sports, which the other partner doesn't feel that that's not my thing. And these things tend to force you more apart. And I believe that the individual have to then have a meeting of the minds in terms of, well, can we sort of establish a little bit of a kind of a safe zone, if you will, because you still have to have time to have time together. You can be sitting in the same room and somebody's playing the games or into games and you are into something else. You're just physically close together, but mentally and socially,
You're drifting apart.
you're disengaged. So I think we would have to find out, whatever couple have to find a way to sort of resolve whatever differences you have, so that moment of oneness dominate your life, at least at some point, and on an ongoing basis.
Yeah, that is true, right? And these things are things that you have to think about. I mean, later on in the program, we're going to address matters like that, all right? But as you mentioned it, these are things that happen. Now, how do the parties relate? And you see, it comes right back down to the fact that we got to understand that we're one. We're in this thing together, and you are the most important person in my life, and I should be the most important person in your life. You see, and if we can keep our focus on that we are the most important in this whole thing, and we should not allow other influences to get in and separate us. That would be a good step. You see, the partners have to understand that the other partner is the most important person, and if we can have that as that mutual feeling, I think we're headed in the right direction. But if we're going to say, well, look, this is my time, and you see, it comes back down to this mine and yours. This is my time, I can do what I want with my time, and that is your time, and you can do what you want. The minute you start going down that road, you're headed for trouble. There has to be our time. Everything has to be ours, right? And if we can focus on this togetherness, this oneness, I think that is the essential step in this whole thing of marriage. We got to see ourselves as being one, headed for one goal, one step at a time, in step with each other. The problems will come, but if we remain together, if that remains, the foundation on which we stand, then we will weather the storm. We're talking about Christian marriage, and therefore, in this whole equation, God is part of this equation. And we got to understand that. This is why I said at the very beginning, it's not just two people involved here. It's three people. God has promised that He's going to be with you. He's going to bless your home, bless your marriage. But if you exclude God from this picture, then you're in for real trouble. You see? And if there is this commitment to each other and this commitment to God, then there's a solid foundation that this is going to work. You see? The problem is that if God is not important, and this is why we come back to this matter of religion, your spiritual walk. If we're walking on different levels or different directions, then you see the problems that will arise.
Is it safe then to say that after divorce is a work in progress? The marriage is not done on that day and done there. It's a work in progress, and those who choose to quit did not complete the process.
Yeah, definitely. You see, you have to understand what is this? Marriage is bringing two people, who are completely different. They come from different backgrounds and all of that. They got their own baggage. You're bringing them together to become one. And what is in the baggage that they bring, you don't necessarily know. You try to know as much of that before, but you don't know everything. You see, because some people are very skillful in hiding certain things in their makeup. You see? So, in the marriage, all of that comes out. You see? But by then, you're in it. You see? So, it's bringing two personalities together to make them one. You think that is easy? That's not easy. And that is what marriage is about. And that's why there has to be this give and take. We have to have an understanding. We have to have a focus. Well, this is where we're going and we're doing it together. I'm going to have rough parts of me. You're going to have rough parts. But together we got to smooth these rough parts out. We got to make them mesh. We got to make them work. Right? What are the things that will make them work? Right? God is essential in all of this whole process. You see, He's the one who will help us to make things work.
So I just want to share an example of, God being essential in our marriage, and I know that it happened to us one night, and Vish probably is so not, maybe he doesn't know, he's not conscious of it, but one night he was watching cricket, and I wanted to sleep. So I'm like, Vish, well, I'm gonna go sleep in the other room. And then, in the wee hours of the morning, we heard a knocking, and Vish heard a knocking, not me, at a door. And then he woke up and he said, Don, did you hear the knocking? And I'm like, no. But I think fear came in, right? But I felt like it was God who was knocking and saying this should not have happened, right? And I think it was like a little eye-opener, because now he would say, you can watch whatever you want. You can take it off whenever you want, TV, you know? And I think it was a wake-up call that God was saying, we should have not done this, you know, should have been a compromise or something. So it is so important to know that God is in our marriages.
Yeah, so sometimes, you know, these things might look at as little coincidences, but, you know, God works in ways to bring things to our mind. If we're conscious of what is going on and we're attentive to what is going on, we will see the signs. You know, it will be a wake-up call for us. You know, but this is the whole idea. The vows are important, and we need to keep these vows in focus, because these are pledges that we have made. Right? And every time you figure, well, look, I can't stand this woman now, or I can't stand this man, remember that as a vow you took, for better, for worse. You see? And you have to find ways and means of working around these situations, of trying to resolve these problems. Right? Christian marriage has the plus of God working along with you. Any questions? So before we go, time is running out. All right, well, we can get down now that the ladies are back and so on. We can get back to working through this process. And remember how we set out to work this book. We'll go through the process, and then we'll discuss anything you want. So next week, whatever comes out of your interaction with each other over the week that you want to discuss, we'll start with that, and then we'll go on to this matter of confession, week 3. All right? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Pastor.